Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir El-Azouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we will help you to understand how much does it cost for you to be EU MDR certified. This is something that is really important because there is a lot of companies that are trying now to be EU MDR certified. And some of them are not really understanding sometimes that it can cost a lot of money, cost some time, cost investment. So I have with me Catherine Higginson from Climedo, who is the marketing manager at Climedo. And they had run a survey, and Catherine will talk about this survey and the result for this survey. So Catherine, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Thanks, Munir. Hi, good to see you.
Hi. So thank you for coming, Catherine, and thanks for all the work you have done to collect all those information. So if you can first introduce yourself, and then we can go through the questions, through the elements that we'll talk about this survey.
Sure. So my name's Catherine Higginson. I'm the marketing manager for Climedo Health. We're a software company based in Munich, and we have a cloud-based software for clinical data capture. And so within Climedo, I'm fairly new to the whole healthcare industry. I've been working there for about a year, but I do a lot of studies and content around MDR to help educate people. So obviously being in the startup world, it's been a nice and steep learning curve as well.
No, it's great. So as I've said, Climedo has issued a survey where they were asking a lot of interesting questions. So what was the purpose for you to create first this survey?
Well, it's actually the second survey that we've carried out this year. The first one was about EU MDR implementation or companies' readiness, just to see how far along they'd come. Also need to mention that was before the MDR was postponed. So the first one we carried out around March. And that survey also showed that a lot of companies were far from ready for the new regulation. And then, of course, it was postponed, and I think everyone kind of heaved a sigh of relief. And this time we wanted to focus on how much it's actually costing companies in terms of time, money, and personnel resources.
No, I think it's good. So I read the survey, and I picked some of the questions, if I can say that, were on the survey, just to ask you, and so maybe to ask you also some precision or some more information about the answer that you received, and maybe your opinion also. What does it mean for you, and what it can mean maybe for some of the companies? So first, there was some question about the hours that a company is taking. Is investing, if I can say, per week on the EU MDR. So what was the result, and what does it mean for a company? So
actually half of the companies said that they're investing more than 5 hours per week just in managing the MDR. So that could be anything from communicating with stakeholders, with their notified bodies, managing their data, of course, which we'll come to later on, maybe even hiring and training staff to help them comply with the regulation. So if you consider that people have a 35 or 40-hour work week, that's a significant amount. That's more than half a day for a lot of people. And around a third said between 1 and 5 hours. Okay, so
when we say 5 hours, so 5 hours per week, so it's mainly, for example, 1 hour per day to work on that. So do you know, this is 5 hours, but is it like 5 hours during 1 week or 5 hours during 1 month or 3 months? So do you have some idea about this type of things?
Well, yeah, it was specifically per week we asked this about. I can't say whether they invest 20 hours in 1 week for a whole month and then nothing the next month or nothing the next week. But I'm guessing it's an ongoing thing that you need to deal with. So it's probably fairly regular with the 5 hours per week.
No, I think it's good because as we are working a lot on the EU MDR actually, it's a process that can be also long. So instead of investing all your hours at the beginning and nothing after, it's maybe better to spread that all along the project. So have somebody that is really there. There is also at the beginning of your project like a learning curve. So it's not like you'll maybe spend more time at the beginning, less in the middle, and more at the end, etc. So it's not like something also that is really straightforward like a line. So here we are talking about hours, but you also ask a question about the resources. So mainly there is a new regulation, so the EU MDR. We are talking about also IVDR, but here we are really talking about EU MDR. So there is new regulations. So it means also new skills, new learning, new information. So are those companies more investing on their own resources, or are they hiring new resources to help them for this new program?
Well, actually, yeah, the majority said they would be hiring at least one person to help them cope with it. Actually, 2/3 said at least one. And for larger companies, the number was much higher. Some said even above 5 employees, which obviously makes sense if it's a larger company with more products or more product categories. They will need more people to help them manage that. And at the same time, we found out in our last survey that simply hiring people or finding people with that skill set to help them deal with the MDR is also challenging. There aren't that many people around who are qualified to fulfill that role. So that's also costing them a lot of time and money, obviously, for things like training, onboarding. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think getting people, training them is costing also a lot of money. Training them is one thing. Putting them in front of a dossier and asking them to do their homework is more difficult because they have no experience on that. So it's something that can be really, really challenging. So as you've said, I mean, we talked about that few months ago. I mean, we had an episode with a hiring company. We are talking about specifically, is it easy or not to find some people for the EU MDR? And the answer was, as you mentioned, no, it's not easy because there are a lot of skills that were not available. The answer was also, we heard also that some people are even moving from medical devices to other fields because it was a bit too much for them. Okay. So yeah, I can understand that this will be really challenging on the resources so that they can meet the deadline and the timeline for that. As they are working on EU MDR, you also were specifically asking about which part of EU MDR was really where they are really investing a lot of time. So this is, I think, something important maybe for the audience to understand what is really maybe the most challenging one for the people that answered the survey. So what was it exactly?
Yeah, so the number one answer for that was simply understanding the new requirements. Yeah. So I don't know if you've read the document yourself, Munir, but obviously 175 pages with a lot of complicated references within and then all the annexes and everything. I'm sure it's not easy to understand for a lot of companies, which is why they need to hire people, or some of them are also dealing with external consultancies to support them. In second place was clinical evaluation and clinical studies, so getting them up to speed and managing all the data and topics like equivalence. And in third place was PMS and PMCF activities. So as we know, the MDR actually places a lot more emphasis on the post-market phase of devices, or rather the entire product lifecycle, as opposed to the MDD. So that's why people need to be collecting a lot more data once the device is on the market and to see if it's actually performing and if it's still safe.
No, I think it's correct. And to be honest, I think it's a good reflection of the change on EU MDR because, the understanding is one of the first things. I mean, it's what we are always saying. You can read the EU MDR 10 times. At the 11th time, you will learn something new each time, because you are processing, if I can say, and there is a lot of things that are misunderstood from the beginning. The other thing is the fact that there is also new guidances that are coming each time. So to try to help us to understand the EU MDR. And so the understanding is changing also all along the journey, if I can say. For clinical and PMCF, I think it's a good also thing. I mean, when I'm asking people what they want to hear about on the podcast or on any video I'm making or any blog I'm making, it's more clinical, post-marketing surveillance, PMCF. Those are really the top three that are coming because now with the EU MDR, you need to have more clinical data than before. So this is something that all the manufacturers try to really anticipate and to have those data, and this is helping a lot. So the survey was also focusing on costs. So in terms of how much it costs. So this episode is really in terms of that, but we saw that it's costing in terms of hours, in terms of people. In terms of money, then, what was their answer in terms of how much does this cost?
Mm-hmm. So we asked this in a percentage of their annual revenue. So we said, how much do you think it'll cost your company? And here almost half said that they think it'll cost 5% of their company's annual revenue, which is a lot. So more than 5%. And we actually asked the same question in our first survey this year. That was one of the few questions that overlapped. And back then, only 32%, I think, said that it would cost more than 5%. So it seems to have become more expensive, or at least people perceive it that way. And when we had a webinar last month, actually, we also asked the question, and we gave people a wider range of options. So we also gave them the option of between 6 and 10% or above 10%, just to see how much above these 5% we would actually be, because we had no idea what the sort of difference was. And I think around 40% said they believe it will be between 6 and 10%. So also a significant amount. And around a tenth said more than 10%. So for some people, it just seems to be extremely expensive all in all.
So if we make it in perspective, for example, if you have a revenue of 100,000 euro, it will be between 5,000 to 10,000 euro to invest on that. And it's for some companies, this is really a huge budget. So this is something that they will really need to anticipate. Yes, for us it's too much, but I suppose that even if it costs this amount, there is still some good to have. I mean, you should go through that. So it's not like you have a lot of choices if you want to continue to sell to Europe. So I suppose the only companies that have big businesses or some businesses or majority of their business in Europe are really have no choice and have to do that. All the others can maybe stop to go to Europe.
Well, yeah, I guess I think with the FDA, they'll be facing similar challenges. I think it's kind of hard to circumvent the MDR entirely. There's also some talk that the market's going to become more consolidated, so larger companies might be buying up smaller companies. Something we also heard in the feedback in the survey was that particularly for small and medium-sized companies, the MDR is very challenging. Some said it's hardly manageable for us, like we don't know what to do. We've been in the market for 15 years and now we just can't cope with these challenges. We can't afford to generate all this data. It was quite sad in some ways as well for them. But yeah, the market is definitely changing.
No, I think it's great because we should shake a bit the tree to see what is falling from it. At the end, I was saying that since a long time. So the new regulations are really something that can kill small businesses if they are not really anticipating, if they don't have the budget or the things. So and helping more big companies, which is something that is unfair. But at the end, what is normally looked at is really the safety of the patients and all those things. So it's something that is important. But I suppose that small companies should try to find a way to get out of this. I can understand it's difficult, and that there can be some of them that will stop business just because of this cost and all the requirements for this regulation. Because you've said it, 175 pages. I want to remind people the MDD plus the AI MDD, so active implantable medical devices, is 80 pages. So it's like more than the double of those two regulations. And here we have the EU MDR. So we can understand that there is more requirements. So it's why you need more people to help you, more resource, more everything. So to be able to place your device on the market. So in terms of your company, so Climedo, there was a lot of questions also related to clinical, PMCF, etc. So let's maybe talk first about what your company is doing, and then look at the survey. What was the outcome of the survey that will help you, or you are maybe surprised or whatever. So what Climedo is doing exactly?
So we have an EDC platform, which stands for electronic data capture, meaning that medical device manufacturers or even pharma companies and CROs, some academic or hospitals as well in academia, they can gather data about a medical innovation, like be it a medical device or a new pharmaceutical product. At the moment, we're very much focused, and we're getting most requests from medtech, obviously because of this whole MDR that's coming. We found that a lot of these people are still working with paper and Excel sheets. So they're actually quite grateful to be able to move it all into the cloud and give different people access, no matter where they're based, so that you just have everything within one holistic solution. And in terms of PMS and PMCF, because we were talking about it, one thing you can also do is product surveys. So you can send out a link via SMS or email, or even through a printed QR code. You can send that to your device users and ask them to give feedback on it, which they can just do at their own convenience using their smartphone. So they don't need to fill in a paper form and send it off or scan it where it could get lost, or maybe the handwriting is hard to read. So we save people a lot of the time. At least that's our goal in that sense.
No, I think it's great. So yeah, I see more and more those type of software that are popping up now about collecting those data through data capture. So through an application, mobile application or a computer application. I think this is really helping a lot to collect the data. To analyze them more easily. As you said, if it's a scanner, you have them to transcribe all what is marked on the papers on maybe a software, an Excel or whatever, which is also taking some time. So here, saving this type of time is really helpful. So now on the survey, so there was also a lot of questions related to maybe your type of device. So what was the outcome of the survey for you? Maybe something surprising, or maybe something that you were already expecting because you knew that it will happen?
Well, a few things we already learned in our last survey, that a lot of the companies weren't fully digital yet, that the industry in general is a little bit behind when it comes to digitalization. So, but we were surprised to once again see that 70% are still working with Excel sheets, for example, and around 50% are working with paper. A lot of them are working with a combination. And yeah, the thing is, a lot of them say, well, it's too expensive or it's too time consuming to switch to an EDC solution, for example. But actually, in the long run, we would be saving them time and money once everything is set up. Of course, it requires a certain initial investment, but it's already worthwhile starting with the first study, and regardless of the company side or the survey size as well, the study size.
So mainly we were saying also that on a lot of episodes on digitalization, if I can say, if I remember, we had one episode with Michael Kania about that. So more and more companies also are continuing to use paper for their quality management system. So their procedures, their documentation and everything, which is also kind of a nightmare when you have to find the paper and to find who authorized that, etc. If it's not scanned, then you have to try to go to archive and to late in the night, in the dark, to make with us.
Not good for unannounced audits either.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this was the point, to say during an unannounced audit, you have no time to prepare anything. And then when they ask you a document, you have to have it nearly immediately. And having to go to an archive room to find a lot of boxes and to look at each paper one by one to find the right one, if you don't have the right system, is a nightmare. And I think it's the same for your type of software. With that, I suppose you can get the data quickly. So it's not like you are waiting or you have to request that. So it's immediate and you have that available for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all there in real time. So as soon as someone submits the survey, you'll see the results in your dashboard, and you can take action.
So so you will still need CROs for that, or you can do that by yourself?
You can also do it by yourself. We do work with CROs as well, but it's totally up to the company, depending on how complex their study is and how large, I guess. But we also work with people, with medical device manufacturers directly without CROs, but both is possible.
Okay. Do you see more activity for you or for maybe this due to the COVID pandemic, due to the fact that I think with the COVID, I mean, the outcome for me for the COVID is the fact that I think a lot of people will now really embrace technology. We were a lot of time on Zoom or on other systems trying to connect our microphone or our webcam or our things, or I mean, it was really like something that was struggling. Now we will be expert on that, I suppose, because we need that to move forward. So do you see on your business a more attractivity to this type of solution due to this COVID-19, because then there will be no interaction with the professionals too, maybe some visitors that are coming to collect data and etc.?
Mm-hmm. I think people are definitely becoming more open towards it and are realizing, okay, this is the only way forward. Funnily enough, after the MDR was postponed, though, a lot of companies' reactions was, well, we have another year now, so we don't need to bother with that yet. Please come back in 6 months. But actually now in the last few months, there's been a lot of demand, and people are definitely clocking on to the fact that this is pretty much the only way forward if you want to keep your devices on the market. And interesting that you mentioned COVID as well, because we've also got a project with the German government now for tracking COVID symptoms in the home. So people receive an EU diary and can type in if they've been infected, or if there's if it's assumed that they might have contracted it and they're in quarantine. They can also type in their kind of symptoms for 14 days, and the local health authorities can track this and monitor and see if there's any severe cases that they need to react to. And previously, all of this was happening on paper as well. So they're also very grateful to have a digital solution where a lot of the processes are now automated.
No, I think it's great because more we are tracking this type of things, more we know what is the situation in a country, and we know also where to invest. If I can say some efforts to try to reduce a virus, or to really put some practical effort on the virus, instead of maybe focusing on a region that has no case or less cases. So to really focus on a region that has a lot of cases and can really spread that. So I think it's a good initiative. I hope other countries will do that, and will also go through this type of solutions so that they can really track this information. So I think it's good. Then you are kind of diversifying your portfolio with this type of
which is lucky. Right time, right place as well, and it's good because we're actually really seeing the difference that we're making, and people are grateful. So
it's great.
Nice to see.
Okay, so was there any other messages from your survey, or everything was said?
I guess one more thing, which is quite interesting, is in terms of PMCF processes. We wanted to know, I think this was our last question, how much of their processes companies had already automated in terms of PMCF. And here, more than half said they hadn't automated anything yet. And only around 10%, or no, actually only 5% said that they had automated 1/10 of their processes. And obviously with PMCF becoming such an important part of the whole process with the MDR, we think that the only way forward there is to really try and automate these processes. So, for example, you can send out scheduled reminders if someone hasn't given feedback on a medical device on time, that kind of thing. So that saves you a lot of time, definitely.
Yeah, I think it saves you a lot of emails that you have to remember to send, or a lot of messages or calls.
Or letters in the worst case.
I think it's a good solution to have some automated solution for also companies that they are setting up that once, and then they don't have to think of it anymore because everything is automatic. So it's really great. Okay, so we talked about the survey. So can we give access of this survey to the people on the audience?
Mm-hmm, definitely, yeah. We can post the link in the show notes where people can download it.
Great. So I will put that on the show notes, so people just go to the show notes and look at this survey. We didn't went through all the questions, so you can go and discover new questions and new answers and see if this is something that can also help you for your business, and also understand EU MDR more. I mean, I have made a lot of podcasts about EU MDR, but maybe there is still things that people don't understand of it. So I hope this will help you also to understand the cost of it. Okay, last thing. So where people can follow up with you, or if they need to know more about Climedo, where they can go?
Sure, yeah, they can visit our website, so just climedo.com, or they can find us on LinkedIn or reach out to me personally. I'm happy to post those links in the show notes as well, Mania, if you like.
Good. So I will put that on the show notes. I will put also your LinkedIn profile on the show notes so that people can just come and say hello to you, and then we can check if this is really something that can help all the audience about if they are planning a survey. We are talking about PMCF, but also do you do also clinical investigation? PMCF is the both things included?
Yes, also clinical studies in general, clinical trials. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so thank you then, Catherine, for that. I think it was really helpful. I hope really that people will contact you and will go to digitalization instead of paper or Excel, because I think this is something that people should move forward and should not look back, because I think this is old solutions that we are using since a long time, and we have to change and to move there. Okay, so thanks for the people that are listening to this episode. Don't forget to go to the show notes. Don't forget also to provide your comments. If you have any comments, I will forward that also to Catherine if there is any questions. And don't forget to put a like if you like it. And also if you are listening to that on your car or on while you are doing your workouts, don't forget also to go to or Apple podcast or Google podcast or Spotify, just to put a comment and to put a like also. So that will be really helping me. Okay, so Catherine, really thank you for coming. Thank you for all the information that you are providing, and I wish you a nice day.
Thanks, Monier. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.